Have you ever thought about spending way less, like $50,000 less, on agency fees and finding a surrogate super quick, like 2 weeks quick? Let's dive into my surrogacy journey and learn how I, as an ordinary mom working in tech without prior experience, could pull it off. Hi, my name is Cindy. I started a family 3 years ago without a partner, using donor sperm and IVF. I carried my first child and turned to surrogacy for my second. I actually carried my first child on my own. So why did I go with surrogacy for my second child? Let's just say because my first childbirth was quite traumatic for me. So even though I know I wanted a second child, the thought of going through it again was just frightening. So after debating for a long time, I decided to give myself a different experience. I didn't have any knowledge of surrogacy. I thought I had to go through an agency. So I did some research. I reached out to some agencies. Imagine that you are quoted an agency fee as high as $50,000, but there is no refund policy, and the wait time is 6 months, a year, or even 2 years before finding a match due to shortage of surrogates. Imagine that there was no guarantee in matching, or the timeline of it, or a policy for if anything changes. I understand that there are things you cannot guarantee, but 6 months to 2 years is a very long time, and circumstances do change. So I hesitated and thought that to give myself a better chance of matching, maybe I should open myself to a bigger pool and not limit myself to any agency at all. By luck, I then connected with another single mom by choice, a very kind and resourceful lady in a Facebook community who just finished a surrogacy journey. She also thought about going through an agency, but it was her surrogate who didn't want to go with an agency, so she ended up completing an indie journey with her and found that it actually was not that hard. She believed it was totally doable doing an indie journey to save $50,000 or however much they quote you. The 3 biggest takeaways from her story were, first of all, unlike what most people believe that surrogates mostly want to go through an agency, there are surrogates who prefer to go independent. Wow. There must have been some aspects of agencies that make it a downside. Therefore, there might be surrogates out there that are open and welcome indie journeys. Secondly, by saving the agency fees, she could afford to be more generous towards her surrogate. For example, she booked them a family trip. This is a key point that I want to educate intended parents. By going independent, you should not see this as a one-sided benefit and then take it for granted. You should always be grateful for this arrangement and make it mutually beneficial. Thirdly, she did this indie journey without prior experience. This information gave me lots of confidence and eventually flipped my decision. This friend told me that there were mainly just 4 areas to learn, and all of them were guided by professionals, meaning agencies cannot do those things themselves. They have to rely on professionals anyways. These 4 areas are, first of all, psychological evaluation. The psychologists or therapists do this, not the agency. Medical procedures, like medical screening, IVF, frozen embryo transfer, etc. It's the doctors that do these, not the agency. Legal aspect, attorneys do this, not the agency. Finally, money aspect, escrow manages this for you, not the agency. I would add the 5th area to the list, which is also very important and not as self-explanatory as the above. It's the surrogate's maternity insurance. For me, this is the most complex area that required me to do the most research on. And I will try to make it simple here. A surrogate-friendly insurance means that the surrogate's insurance covers all of the medical costs associated with the surrogate's maternity need. Most insurance policies don't cover surrogates. Or if they do, they only cover altruistic surrogates and not those who receive compensation for it. Some hospitals would still allow the surrogates to use their medical services, but will bill the surrogates later for up to 1/3 of their base compensation. This is the so-called lien, which you will hear a lot about after doing more research. Most surrogates don't have surrogate-friendly insurance, causing you to have to either wait till open enrollment time at the end of the year or buy a very expensive plan mid-year or pay the lien. So you need to consult insurance consultants like ARG Risk Solutions or International Fertility Insurance, IFI. The bottom line is agencies also need to consult insurance consultants and don't necessarily perform these evaluations themselves, just like they don't perform the actual work for the other 4 areas either. That said, I'm not saying that agencies don't bring value to the process. In fact, I have 2 friends who went through surrogacy and they both did it with an agency. And they both found it worth the agency fees. A good agency would handhold you through the process and coordinate all of these areas to make sure nothing falls through the cracks. They will save you a lot of time and effort and offload your stress. I'm just offering an alternative to those who have a tight budget and wouldn't mind investing in some time to manage the tactical details of the process. You need to ask yourself, are you comfortable contacting different professionals in different areas, keeping track of their schedules and deliverables, and most importantly, asking questions in areas that you have no expertise in? Are you comfortable interviewing and vetting the potential surrogate? Are you comfortable discussing compensation directly with the surrogates without a middle layer? Professionally, I have been a program manager my whole career. I'm very used to working with different professionals and managing projects to completion. Also, I might have some bias for this, but I feel that for agencies, I might just be another case for them. But for me, this is my life. So I was quite confident that I could give more attention to my case than any agency. I also feel more comfortable when I had more control over direct communications and not having to go through a middle person. For example, one of the doctors recommended that I break match with my surrogate due to her not aligning issues. And I was very sad when I heard that. I love my surrogate and an advocate for her. I proposed multiple options and negotiated to keep her. This would have been a lot harder if I was going through a middle person. Overall, budget-wise, a huge benefit of going indie was that I was free to work with anyone in the industry that fits my budget and did not have to be limited to an agency's network. That means I always compared the quotes from different providers before I decided which one to go with. Even though the individual savings were not a lot, they did add up. In one of my future videos, I will share with you all of the costs incurred during my indie journey. In the end, everything worked out perfectly. My clinic assigned me a coordinator who actually guided the flow, provided recommendations for the psychologists, therapists, and attorneys that they had worked with before. I believe most clinics provide such recommendations. If yours doesn't, you can easily search online or ask for recommendations in the online form. As for the surrogate insurance, I did have to consult 2 insurance consultants and decided on the most suitable option for me. The escort selection part was even easier. I just chose the cheaper one from the recommended list, and it also worked perfectly. If you have any questions, feel free to add a comment below, and I will take these inputs when I create future videos. In my next videos, I will break down step by step how I found my 2 surrogates and how we build mutual trust, what's the exact timeline of the transfer cycles and the total costs incurred throughout surrogacy. Make sure to check them out. Be sure to subscribe, like, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any latest videos.